Minister, let me start off with you, because you're really, you oversee major Vision 2030 initiatives, including the push to create a homegrown metals and mining industry. How does Saudi Arabia look at its suite of initiatives with, industrial power on what to prioritize to stand the test of time, given the changes, not only in technology, but also energy and geopolitics?
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here in Doha, and I would like to, first of all, congratulate the organizers. We need more and more events to talk about what's happening in the region. I think it's clear to say and easy to say that today in our vision, Saudi Vision 2030, diversification of our economy is key. And definitely mining and industry are both areas where we can see great opportunities that will enable us to achieve this. If we look at the progress that we have been able to make in the last 7-8 years since we launched our vision, we have been very consistent in the way we build the initiatives, the way we execute, and today we are actually seeing a lot of results on the ground. And we were talking backstage about, it's easy to have a plan, and I think a lot of people can build great plans, but what counts at the end of the day is the ability to execute. And today, I think, I like to call it in Saudi, mastering the art of execution, because execution is a lot of art. If the plan is a lot of science, and the art of execution is really being able to show all stakeholders, especially when we talk about industry, for example. It's not enough for a country to decide to have industry as a main component of its economy. There has to be a lot of engagement by private sector who are willing actually to put up the investments. Mining is a great example also of something that's definitely new, and the art of execution is really to address what kind of challenges or concerns do these investors who are interested in investing in these sectors would like a government to look at and to solve for. And I will just give a quick example in mining. What we see in mining is not only the resource, which we have a lot of, but what is the main important element of mining or unlocking the mining sector is the regulatory framework. And we have been able to introduce, I would claim, one of the best, if not the best, mining investment law globally today. It's not me saying this, it's really major players in the industry talking about it, which helps solve for one of the most critical elements of investment in mining, which is time of licensing. And we have been able to reduce the licensing time from global average of 3 to 5 years to less than 6 months.
And Minister, I want to come back to exactly where you're investing, but overall, I mean, it's not easy being in the business world right now because it's so tumultuous and it changes so fast. So Henadi, in an era of rising interest rates, deglobalization, supply chain shocks, and economic trends, frankly, that are changing week by week, what are you most concerned about in terms of, the capital that's being deployed around the world, but also cross-border?
So I think you're absolutely right, and I think about agility and where we're focused on. So we're focused on investing and operating in businesses that touch the entire value chain of the supply chain, whether it's industrial real estate, freight forwarding, and this has been impacted not simply now, but over the past few years. So if you think about the past few years and you think about trade is no longer about comparative advantage or pricing efficiency. It's really become a matter of national and technological sovereignty and security. So that changes the dynamic quite a lot. And what you see over the past few years, you see countries that are geopolitically friendly trading more. In the past 3 years, they've traded close to $600 billion worth of trade in their own sectors. What does that mean? That covers around 60% of global trade. What does that imply for a lot of people, especially as companies? That means you see rises of new manufacturing hubs, new logistics hubs. Saudi Arabia, as an example. Qatar, as an example, from the top 10 cargo hubs around the world. So what does that mean as a company? It means you need to really change and shift and diversify. You need to focus on diversification, making sure you produce and your supply chain is focused on your end consumer market. And not just that, you need to think about digitization and how do you remain nimble and agile at the same time.
Thuy, what does that mean for Vingroup? Again, you have different sectors, you have different exposures. So how do you think about the biggest challenges, but also where do you see the biggest opportunities?
Well, just in case you don't know, Vietnam got 46% reciprocal tariff. So that was, it came as a surprise to us. But I think we've been dealing with it. We've been having the discussion, and I think we're going to come out of it all right. I think in our sector, we got in automotive, we make EVs and we export to the US as well. We got an extra 25% tariff as well. So dealing with the challenges, dealing with the political uncertainties and high interest rate and all that. But I think for us, it's important to be agile and flexible. And that's how we've been doing, right? We've been making partnership in time like this. Partnership, bilateral or regional partnerships are important. Trust is important to in partnerships. And then we build our own capabilities. So luckily during the COVID time, we had to build our own vertical, supply chain in Vietnam for ourselves. So that came in handy during this time. So I think I would say that we just need to be agile and need to anticipate that there will be continued changes, and we just need to adapt to it. We've been growing as a group. We've been adding more businesses. We're adding renewable energy. We're adding infrastructure to our group, and we continue growing because we anticipate that there will be changes.
Henadi?
Yeah, no, I think you bring up some really good points, and just building on being agile, thinking about digitizing your supply chain, that is a huge opportunity. So if you think about, the application of AI in your supply chain today, but, when you look at supply chains, any supply chain that is digitally enabled can actually grow your revenues by 3% during any economic turmoil. Not just that, companies today only have around, limited visibility, real-time visibility. 10% of companies around the world have real-time visibility in their supply chain. So by applying digitization and AI, the thing is you can improve your inventory by around 15%, you can reduce costs by another 20%. So those are opportunities which everybody should really be aware of and heed to.
Minister, where does Saudi Arabia's mining industry, where is it looking to invest? And again, if you're looking at major deals, have they had to take a back step because of the global volatility?
No, I think it's on the contrary. I think today, if we look at many of the sectors that we target, both in mining and in industry, we are actually solving for many global challenges, especially with supply chain. We underestimated, I think the global community underestimated the need of minerals, and today we are actually in race with time to ensure that we have the right quantities of minerals and metals to satisfy the global need in energy transition, in automation, in technology, and defense, and so on. We have created the Future Mineral Forum, which addresses these challenges. It's a platform where we bring governments, we bring private sector, large mining companies, financial institutions, academia, technology providers, to look at ways of how can we introduce the right technologies, for example, to ensure that we expedite exploration, but also refining. How can we ensure that there are enough investments going to different assets to ensure also they are operating? How can governments today work together collectively to ensure that it's a seamless supply chain with regards to from the resource to the refining to the downstream and so on? And if we look at global resources of mining for today, Africa, Middle East, and Central Asia, they represent almost 33% of the global mining reserves, but yet only contribute to 6% of the output, and that's a huge gap. So the intention of also Saudi Arabia through this platform to ensure there is a right dialogue between governments to ensure that we help different countries. So that's an area where the more we improve efficiency, the more we introduce new technologies, the more we promote the right behaviors in mining, then the outcome will be more investment flowing to the sector, which will definitely help solve for the supply chain challenges.
Yeah, but Minister, Saudi Arabia is also trying to do more localized production, for example, because, for example, for autos, right, are on the Red Sea coast. So do you see more localized production to be, I guess, a little bit more hedged in these global supply chains?
Definitely, and I think the localization strategy that we have is not only to address our resilience or national security, which is a main component. I mean, I would not also underestimate the importance of the resilience, but it's more than that. It is really capturing a new value. Today, in manufacturing, for example, scale is becoming less important because of new technologies that are being introduced. I think His Excellency Faisal talked earlier about how can we look at the future jobs of the workforce. And today in manufacturing, in mining, and many of the sectors we intend to build in Saudi are all built on new technologies. How can we ensure that while we are growing our economy, we are creating the right jobs for our people? We are actually also contributing to not cater for the local market, but for the region and globally. So automotive is a sector that we have been waiting to attract for many years. Our vision is a great enabler that brought this sector to Saudi. We are the largest country exporting cars with no local manufacturing. And I think it's the right move. And if you look at what we did as a bet in automotive, betting on EVs is showing you how we think as a country we are investing in the future.
And you've had to, I mean, we've mentioned this, right? The fact that actually your supply chains have changed quite quickly. I think VinFast has pivoted away from markets including the US and Canada due to the tariff situation. Like, how do you see, for example, car makers and automakers, evolving?
Well, I think for the automotive industry for the last 5 years, we've been facing challenges after challenges from supply chain. Previously, you heard about the shortage of battery, semiconductor, to getting to today when disruption in supply chain. But we built a supply chain in Vietnam. So I think I just shared with His Excellency Minister before. We started with almost zero over 7 years ago in Vietnam with no supply chain. When we launched the first car 21 months later, the local content's about 11-12%. Now we're at about 65% and keep increasing to about 80%. So it takes a little bit of time, but you just have to build the supply chain. And COVID taught us that we couldn't rely on external forces. So again, partnership and reaching in, like strengthening yourself, is important in the current time.
And Henadi, you've mentioned, these shifts and changes. I guess the difficult part is knowing whether this is a new normal for a very long time, or whether some of these, tariffs are just a passing phase.
I think you talk about the new normal. What's interesting is if you look at first quarter earnings, the word uncertainty has jumped close to around 50%. And it is uncertain. Is this the new normal? We don't know, but this is where you need to hedge yourself for any situation. You talk about manufacturing and also localization, and you see this trend taking place over the past 10 years where around 70% of corporates are actually reshuffling, to a certain extent, friendshoring, localizing all of their manufacturing and their supply chains in order to hedge potential disruptions and uncertainties and challenges. I think in any case, we don't know if it's a new normal, But in all cases, you have to prepare yourself with a strong balance sheet, the right talent, and digitization.
And to you both, I'll ask you in a second how basically your business strategy has changed and will change. But Minister, how do you support chief executives or chairpersons that have to deal with this kind of big challenges?
Well, I used to be in the private sector for 25 years, so I can tell you I never expected the role of government to increase as it is today. It's without government really helping private sector to capture different value, it will be very hard to see the growth in the private sector. It's also the role of governance today when we look at the interruption that has happened from the trade issues without governments really lobbying and helping and moving really towards helping private sector to be at least getting some certainty. But if we take today different technologies, AI or robotics or even logistics, without connectivity, they will never be enabled. And connectivity needs to be led by governments through the infrastructure investment, through the regulation. Cybersecurity is a big challenge. It's a concern without really addressing the concern of private sector of how to deal also with the information age and how to deal with different technologies and making sure that they are well secured. It will be very hard to see private sector being encouraged to invest in new technologies. So I think the role of government today in infrastructure, digital and physical, in human capital development, and in setting the right policies that are very, I would say, proactively addressing the different needs and challenges of private sector, it will be very hard to see private sector flourish. And this is why really we see Saudi Arabia getting a lot of attention from global players and investors. Last year is a great demonstration of the growth we have done. 2024 was the record high export of Saudi Arabia, non-oil export. We grew from 16% contribution non-oil export to 25% contribution of our GDP in non-oil export. The non-oil, non-petrochemical growth of exports was 9% last year. So this is just showing how the right investment, the right policies, the right also engagement with private sector is giving us a lot of leverage, giving us yield. I was talking to Henadi before. I had dinner with several CEOs a few days ago, and one of the large companies, Al-Mara'i, is a big food company in Saudi, a big, strong brand. He turned to me and he said, look, we have been getting a lot of support from the government in the last few years. We are always asking you for things. Now I want to ask you, what can we as Al-Mara'i do for you? This is just showing you the kind of appreciation that we are getting from private sector, and we will continue to do that because we are keen in having Saudi Arabia perceived as the right place to invest in manufacturing, in mining and logistics.
Given this shift, Henadi, how do you see your business strategy actually being reshaped in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think it's really, from our perspective, because our roots, even though we're a global company today, our roots is started from the GCC, and it started on the back of, as you talked about, public-private partnerships. From our perspective, we'll continue doubling down on it. We'll continue doubling down on our investments in core markets in which we're strong in and which have that consumer demand, natural resources in order to be able to grow in.
And Thuy, how do you see business, changing in the longer term?
Like I mentioned before, our organization, Vingroup, we're the largest private conglomerate in Vietnam, but we're still growing like crazy. We started getting into the sector that we never thought we would be in before, renewable energy, infrastructure, railway, and all that. And our country, Vietnam, just is also changing rapidly. Like the government is optimizing itself, reducing people, merging the ministry, merging the provinces, and becoming more and more efficient. So leading the way, and also relying, vocally announcing that relying more on the private sector to grow. So we feel like we have in challenges, there are opportunities. There are a lot of opportunities for private sector, for corporates to grow. So I'm quite positive about the future. I understand that there are uncertainties, there are issues, but very, very positive about the future.